And the reason we record is if you can't make a session, you can catch up on the recording. And also, if there's something that was said or discussed that you just wanted to rehear, to look at in a bit more detail, you can just go back to the recording. So we'll upload those to Moodle about 24 hours after the session. Content warning, we analysed a few road crash scenes, nothing graphic, but just trying to look at how to prevent crashes or prevent severity of crashes in the future. So if that's something that could disturb you, just take note of that. It is part of what we're doing in this course. Over to you, Max. Tell us who you are and tell us how to use this Zoom webinar function, please.
Yes, well, welcome everyone. And this is a little bit different to your traditional Zoom meetings. So in the webinar version, we won't be able to see you or hear you talk. So all of those functions are disabled. We do have the ability to
Oh, sorry, you
am
cut
I back?
out there, Max. You're back now. Sorry.
Stressful time for a moderator when the internet goes.
You said we do have the ability to, and then we didn't hear anything else. So
we can unmute if that is something you would like to do. If you would like to have.
Okay, lost Max again. So I'm going to take over this bit. Max will be behind the scenes and he will be answering some questions. But what Max is trying to say there, maybe he's copying that network outage that Christchurch is copying. We have the ability to unmute you, let you unmute yourself. We can't actually physically go in and unmute you. We will do that if you put your hand up, if you want to discuss something. So that's the hand up or lower hand button. So that's an option for you. But we predominantly want to use the chat function. That's our go-to. So any questions you've got along the way, the chat function is there for you. Ask questions as we go. Don't wait till we stop because it's the time to type it and send it through and the like. In the chat function down here, there's a little snip of it. You have the option to talk to Max and myself or to talk to everybody. So a little drop down menu there. We suggest you talk to everybody. Everybody is good because we can get a bit of conversation going in the background. Others may have the same questions, and so it's good to do that. So I suggest you pop that chat box open, drop it down to everybody, and then get ready to type in there. Welcome back, Max.
Yes, I'm on my hotspot now, so hopefully that provides a better connection. Don't know what's going on the internet today, but fingers crossed the hotspot solves these issues.
All right. Well, I didn't tell people who you were yet, so you can tell us that.
I'm a senior project engineer at Safe System Solutions and regularly involved in conducting safe system assessments across the jurisdictions and lots of practical experience developing them and being part of the process. So any of tricky questions you've got, I'm sure I'll be happy to oblige and answer them in the chat function. Otherwise, I'll pass them off the line to Ken.
Thanks, Max. And I think the one I missed was the Q&A. The Q&A is really only there for things that, or for anybody whose firewall or something blocks the chat function, which occasionally happens. But we really prefer the chat as the place to answer questions, ask questions, make comments, answer the little questions and things that we pop up with. So get involved in that. And we've already covered that. Sorry. And this is me. Sorry, I jumped through a few slides there. My name's Ken Beer. I'm the principal engineer at Safe System Solutions. Before that, I worked at the Victorian Road Authority, Vic Roads. Max actually worked there as well. yeah, I was in a variety of roles there, manager road safety engineering, manager planning for a while. And yeah, heavily involved in the sort of idea of the safe system in its early days, and then implementation and development of safe system assessments and the like. And now doing a lot of work in all jurisdictions around Australia and New Zealand, and love doing the projects in New Zealand, getting out there and helping out. Unfortunately, this pandemic stopped me getting on the ground there a lot. That's my QR code to my LinkedIn. I do like LinkedIn as a platform to continue the road safety conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. We post quite a few things we call safe system snippets, just little bits of information about road safety engineering, road safety, and share those. So love to connect with you. So please do that. But my contact details are there if you're not on LinkedIn, and we can keep in contact anyway if you've got questions or doing interesting projects and want to see if anybody, if we've done anything similar that we can share with you. I'm always happy to share stuff. Max, why don't you take us through Moodle?
Yes, so hopefully everyone by now has received an email from our learning management system called Moodle. And if you haven't yet, perhaps just check your spam folder. And if there's still nothing, please do get in touch, because this is where we house all of the contents related to this course. It'll have all your resources, it'll have your assignments, your quizzes, everything that you need to complete this course is housed on this online website. So please do get in touch if you haven't got access to it just yet, and we'll make sure to sort that out for you. But that's where we house everything.
Thanks, Max. So Moodle is your go-to. And also you may have by now received a pack in the mail that has a USB stick. The USB stick has the content that's replicated in Moodle. So you've got access to the information we're going to go through, the slides, some other resources and other bits and pieces there as a sort of a secondary one, a backup. And hopefully you also got a few little goodies to keep you going. Right, this is Wally the Wombat morning sign. Now, Wally is going to appear a random number of times each session. And you've got to keep track of how many times Wally appears. So playing a bit of Where's Wally throughout the session. And that will be one of your quiz questions at the end of the session. And this is one of our many little tricks to try to keep you engaged. I know you want to be doing that roundabout design or dealing with those emails while we're doing the session, but we want you to be engaged in the content, thinking about it, asking us questions, answering questions. And so we've got Wally there just to make sure you're keeping an eye on what's happening. So keep an eye out for Wally. That's just a demonstration of what Wally looks like. Your Wally count is 0 at the moment. Now, Max, prizes. I see you're in a prize pit there. Tell us what's going on.
That's right. We do love to give out prizes. We love when we get some really insightful questions being asked, or perhaps some prompt responses to questions that Ken have asked. So if you are very engaged in this webinar, you're a good chance to win a prize. And it's not these soft toys that you see behind. We've got even more exciting prizes to hand out. So certainly worth being engaged within the webinar to ensure you get one at your end.
Good. Thank you, Max. And how do people get these?
So what we'll do is, once the course has completed and you've successfully completed all the competency requirements, you'll get a certificate saying that you've passed this course and you've adhered to everything that was required, and we'll post that out to you, your certificate, and we'll also post out any of the prizes that you may have won. So you get this one beautiful package with just a whole bunch of exciting things in there for you.
Great. And trivia?
Yeah, so in the following sessions, if you do arrive a couple minutes early, I'll be doing some trivia. It could be general trivia, it could be road safety trivia, just starting to spark a bit of conversation to get things going. And if you get the trivia answers correct, you're a chance to win a prize as well.
Great. So there's an incentive to log in a little early for our next session on Friday, must be. So yeah, log in a couple of minutes early for a chance to win a prize. Thanks, Max. So we do have some competency benchmarks for this course. So some sort of easy things there. Attend 4 out of the 5 live webinars and view that one if you can't attend it. Although we'd love you to come along to 5. Have a chat with Max if you've got any other challenges in getting to at least 4. We need you to complete all those set tasks, the quizzes, assignments, everything, and that must be an 80% on all of those. Now, 80% is pretty high mark to achieve on these, but we don't shy away from that because we want to set a relatively high competency of people out there doing safe system assessments, at least in terms of knowing the process and the principles and some of the fundamentals. Now, don't get too scared because everything that you will be asked in the quizzes or the assignments will be covered in the content. Second of all, you have many, many things to help you in the sense of lots of resources and the like, which we'll point to you at. You have 3 attempts at everything, and you have one-on-one coaching available from Max or myself, and we can organize a Zoom catch-up, and we can talk you through bits. We can re-go over content if we recognize that's the bit you're not grasping and is holding you from getting that 80% mark on one of your assignments or quizzes or the like. So if you don't get to 80%, we fail as well as you fail because we haven't been able to get that information across to you and get you up to that competency level. So I'm not going to make that happen, and Max isn't going to make that happen, and so you've got support as long as you're willing to take that on. So I'll pause there, and Max, just see if anybody wants to get any clarification on the running of the course. Or any questions that I need to deal with. Of course, Max behind the scenes answers lots of questions and comments and things like that. But Max, anything for me before I jump into some content?
So far, so good. Ken, feel free to get cracking.
Oh, thank you. Well, I will start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the many lands on which this training is running. Pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and it is quite a few lands across New Zealand. We've got good coverage there. It's very exciting. Okay, what we want to do to start with is make sure we're all on the same page with this idea of the safe system. And I know a lot of you have done a lot with the safe system. You've heard it many times. You're probably thinking, oh, okay, here we go again, going to get the usual spiel. I may put some slightly different lenses on a few things or contextualize a few things, but I will be sort of shaping it all for us to be able to do that assessment. But we're going to start fairly broad in a philosophical sense, and we'll narrow down from there. But by the end of this module, we're going to make sure we're all on the same page with the principles and elements of the safe system, sort of generic principles and elements of the safe system. Kinetic energy thresholds for different crash types, the difference between traditional approaches to road safety and the safe system approach, some best practice in behavioural change and vehicle interventions, and sort of have some discussion about speed and why it's so critical in the safe system. Now, it'd be nice to you here. There's a Wally, obviously. Now your Wally count is 1. No more help with Wallies. Road to Zero. Road to Zero is New Zealand's road safety strategy for the current decade, 2020 to 2030. And this is really a world-class sort of strategy an approach, and a lot of great thinking has gone into it. And I do actually often point other jurisdictions to the New Zealand strategy as a lot of really good stuff in there that they should copy. So that's good. But in amongst the many things, and download a copy and have a flick through if you haven't already. And there's quite a number of exciting things, but one that I've just grabbed out here looks at a few dot points, but these are the key performance indicators. What are the two that I'm really interested in? A percentage of people who have completed an approved safe system training course and show improved understanding of the safe system. So that's exciting. That's sort of what this course is about. But the next one, percentage of road infrastructure projects that have been subject to a road safety audit and or a safe system assessment. So we're starting to see now the safe system assessment is really embedded into the strategic objectives of the next 10 years. It's going to be tracked and monitored, and we know things that are measured are improved and are taken on board. So that's good. That's exciting. And it shows that it's going to the safe system assessments will complement road safety audits. So those who currently get road safety audits done on projects or do road safety audits, safe system assessments are not going to take over those. And nor is there no need for a safe system assessment because you're doing road safety audits. They're overlapping entities, assessment techniques, but they are different techniques. And I'll take you through that in a lot of detail, just so you're all on the same page. The safe system. The safe system's been around for a while, different diagrams popping up around the jurisdictions. In fact, I might ask just an interesting question to the group of when, this is actually one of the first diagrams of the safe system, but when did New Zealand formally adopt the safe system as the approach nationally that would be taken to address road trauma? So first one to get it right in the chat will win a prize, and you can just have a guess because you don't lose any points or anything if you get it incorrect. So pop a year in and we'll have a go on that.
All right, we've got a few streaming through now, Ken. 2010, 2001, 2018, 2005, 2012, 11, 19, 92, 2008, 2009. Same year as Austroads development. 2004. I think we're getting closer.
We are getting close there with 2004. I think just into 2005 was New Zealand's formal. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Right, just as I was saying it. Well, how about Max, because I'm feeling generous, give it to 2004, 2005, and 2006. Take the
Beautiful.
spread.
It's that easy to win a prize, guys. Well done.
I'm in a prize-winning mood. So that's exciting. The fact that it's been around a while, it's not a new thing, but it also makes you scratch your head and think, okay, maybe you hadn't heard of it until recently and formally adopted and it was there and everybody. The challenge is that, people had this general understanding of sort of what the concept of it was, but really applying it, thinking about it in detail, that was a bit foreign. And a lot of people just said, oh, well, it's, just enhanced focus on safety and, doing more of what we do and just being, really attuned to that. And then that's not actually right. It's actually a fundamental shift in the way we think about safety within the road transport system. And I'm going to go through that. But I'm going to go through that by telling you a little bit about the background of this original diagram before we jumped over to some of these types of diagrams. And you're probably recognizing some of the New Zealand ones in there. But let's talk about this first diagram, this early diagram. Now, in the middle of the diagram, there was human tolerance to physical force. How much force can humans take before we break? That's an interesting thing to start with. The biomechanics of injury, we call it. But anyway, okay. Then around that, we had the elements that were seen as how we would achieve this this safe system. And we saw there the vehicles, the speed of travel, and the roads and roadsides. And that was it. That was the whole system. The circle was around it. And then some people said, well, hang on, what about the road users and them being like alert and compliant? And this is where we got this split. There were two camps there. We had a camp that was saying, no, we're going to create a system. Our aim is to create a system that does not require humans to be alert and compliant to survive. Right? They may be involved in crashes and things like that. They may be fined heavily. We don't want it to happen, but our system should cater for people who are not alert and compliant. And then there was the other camp who was going, no, God, this is a system that humans are involved in its operation, and they must be alert and compliant, and they must be, we should look at ways to make them alert and compliant. Anyway, so this battle went on, and actually, as it got more and more to people who didn't sort of understand the philosophy of the safe system, they more and more resonated to making humans this critical element of the system. And this box was put around the outside, and this alert and compliant road users, addition was put in there. And a lot of us, myself included, just went, wow, it's a fail. We failed the whole idea of the safe system from its original philosophy. And that's the easiest get out of jail card for system designers, road controlling authorities, and everything like that to go, well, they weren't in control of the vehicle, or they fell asleep, or they were looking at their phone, and they've got to be alert and compliant to survive on our road network. Now, the thing is that we have a system where humans are involved in it, and humans fail. I've made many mistakes already this morning. None have resulted in death or serious injury, I hope. But we fail as humans all the time. It's just part of being human. Sometimes we learn from it. Sometimes it's just, the way we do things. But we're going to have mistakes and failures, and it's going to happen on the road. So we need to create a system that caters for those. We're not going to encourage them, and we're going to do stuff to try to minimize them. But we need to start creating that system. So you'll see then that in evolutions from that, people don't have that specified in that way. But let's jump in to see what New Zealand is using at the moment. And as I mentioned, this is pretty exciting, cutting edge stuff. It looks simple, and there sort of looks like simple words and ideas, but it's very powerful. And I'm not going to go through these in a lot of detail here, because we're going to explore them more with case studies and other things. But let's have a look at the principles. I think there is a really important principles, and New Zealand's put them in a way that I think really captures ideas quite nicely. So let's just quickly look. We strengthen all parts of the road transport system. Okay, great. So we're not just talking about the roads or the vehicles or the traffic signals or these sorts of things, all parts of it, or the licensing system or whatever, all parts of it. We design for human vulnerability. Okay, that's interesting and exciting, isn't it? Because now we're talking about human tolerance to physical force, vulnerability of humans, our structure, how much force we can take before we're seriously injured or killed, and starting to use that as a design parameter. That's cool. Right. We have a shared responsibility for improving road safety. This is important to understand in the fact that we don't sort of say road users have the ultimate responsibility for their safety. And in fact, we go the other way in the safe system. We say system designers have the ultimate responsibility. That's us. That's all of us, right? We have the ultimate responsibility. And if an incident happens, we've got to look at what went wrong in our system to have a death or serious injury. Our actions are grounded in evidence and evaluated. This is super important, and something that this is one of the big ones I tell other jurisdictions to do, is make some statement like that, because in road safety, more than so many other industries, every road user, or most road users, have a very strong opinion, and they believe they are well informed because they have been a road user for a long time. So, and I just, the amount of time somebody would start their letter or town hall, and they'd stand up and they'd say, and it would start with, I've been driving for 40 years, or I drive 130,000 kilometers a year, or I have been riding this route since, whatever it is, like that in their mind, and it's fair enough, makes them an expert in what they're about to say. That's okay, because they've got lots of experience from that perspective. But what is interesting is that they have not looked at that from a macro perspective, from a statistically significant evaluation perspective, from a collective perspective. So they are just making these comments based off their individual experience. And one of the hardest things to do as a road safety professional is to step away from your personal experience on something, look at the research and evidence, and make that call based on that, rather than what you particularly feel. Now, sometimes your judgment and your ideas can be beneficial and assist that, but we really have to use research and evidence. And there are so many myths and ideas in the community about road safety that are just absolutely counter to what the research and evidence shows. And I'll show you some of those shortly. Our road safety actions support health, well-being, and livable places. This is one of the smartest principles of the SAFE system from an implementation perspective I've seen in a long, long time. The reason for that is you get amazing traction with community and get other groups involved and on board in implementing safe system solutions when you ride the coattails of health, well-being, places, and all these other things, rather than stopping death and serious injury to the community. Yes, that can be very effective in some circles, in some circumstances, but there is quite a community perception that the death and serious injury on the road is all the lunatics and ice addicts and people doing stupid stuff. Now, that's actually not the case, and I'll show you that shortly. I mean, that is part of the problem, but there's a far bigger problem with people going about their daily business. But to actually think, what can we jump onto that has the same end result, but has other benefits? And so it's very smart. We make safety a critical decision-making priority. And that's to say, safety is paramount. And we promote good choices, but plan for mistakes. So as I talked about, trying to ensure that everything has been done to try to minimize people's mistake making, but then planning for when the mistake still happens, because it will. And you can see there these circles here in the diagram are these different levers that we are using to pull there. So we've got the infrastructure and the speed management, the vehicles, still got road user choices and enforcement and those sorts of things included in there, the management of the system as an entity, and work-related road safety. So that's a really good one, trying to, again, jump on the coattails of workplace health and safety and broaden that philosophy. And there's a vision in here. The vision is a New Zealand where no one is killed or seriously injured in road crashes. Now, note there a very important thing about that statement. It doesn't say a New Zealand where there are no road crashes, does it? It says where nobody will be killed or seriously injured in road crashes. And that's an important distinction, because the safe system, achieving a safe system, there'll still be crashes, there'll still be incidents, there'll still be bumps and scrapes and the like. It's just we're trying to manage the energy within tolerable levels. Now, Max, jump in at any point if there's any questions or comments for me to deal with.
Yep, so far so good. Thanks, Ken.
Excellent. Let me take us, let's get out of road transport for a while and look at another industry. I mean, let's look at the production of widgets, some, manufacturing of something, whatever it is. We call it a widget. In the factories, back in the day, there was what we called a pathological safety culture, where it was essentially recognized that it was dangerous, the machines were dangerous, and the workers, be them the children who are cleaning or the others who are cleaning, or the people putting stuff into the machines and collecting stuff, were told, oh, this is dangerous, this is how you do it, this is how you do it safely. Now you have to protect yourself and be responsible, and safety is your responsibility in there. We've told you what to do. Now be safe. And we saw people killed, crushed in the machines, arms ripped off, kids killed. It was quite an open system in the sense that people would come in and be paid cash and do whatever they're doing. People would turn up after boozy lunches and get on the machines and that sort of stuff. But that's what we sort of call a pathological safety culture. And then it sort of elevates up from that in terms of safety culture. And then the next thing was this reactive safety culture, which was to say, oh, safety is really important, and we will address safety issues as they arise, and basically as they present themselves in death and serious injury and the like. So, this is where they go, well, that machine's now ripped 2 people's arms off and killed another person. We need to have a look at that. Okay, what can we do here? We'll put a guard on it, and maybe everybody who has to put stuff into that, they should use like a stick or something to push it in instead of their hand. And we'll tell everybody they have to do that. And it's just sort of spot addressing these issues as they arise. Then it sort of elevates up from that. And this is usually where the economists get involved. And it becomes this calculating safety culture, where the economists come in and they look across, they get the data, they go, oh, interesting, okay. So you're losing 30,000 pounds, it's pounds back in these days, you're losing 30,000 pounds every 5 years on lost productivity because machines are down, in paying out to families of people who are killed and the like. If we spent £10,000 on upgrades to these machines and guards and sticks for everybody and some better training and these other bits and pieces, you can save that £30,000 and come up with this new thing called a benefit cost ratio, and the benefit cost ratio will be 3, because for every pound you invest, you get £3 back in increased sales and productivity and cash in your pocket. So that's the calculating safety cost. So you can sort of balance it out. How much is it worth spending? Okay, so we'll have 2 of our workers killed per year, but that's about right in terms of how much we're paying out. Let's get that balance about right. Then it elevates, and it elevates to a point what we call a proactive safety culture, which says that we need an incredibly high level of safety, a very high level of safety. And widgets can be produced up to, that within that bound of safety, but no more. And if you go over that risk tolerance, widget production will stop until it's brought back within check. So safety sets the precondition for the widget production. And then you need to constantly invest in maintaining that high level of safety in terms of the culture, but also all the equipment and machines and people and the like. So that's what we call a safety ladder. And when you think about the New Zealand road system, the question is where do we sit? Where do we sit on the safety culture ladder when we overlay this onto the public road network? And I'd say that we sit across a few of these with different elements of it. There's a lot of pathological stuff going on. I mean, we know it's highly dangerous out there, yet we pat people on the back, say, congratulations on getting your license. Here's a vehicle that can go 180, 200, 300 kilometers an hour. Best of luck. And safety is your responsibility, by the way. You have to be safe out there. And the system is just not set up to be safe in a lot of areas. There's a lot of reactive stuff, chasing the crashes, chasing the lightning strikes, as they're sometimes called, looking for areas where there have been crashes. And that's valid. If you've got a cluster of crashes, you want to be looking at that. But there's calculating. A lot of, oh my gosh, the BCR into everything, business cases and justification around that, or how much extra productivity can we get for New Zealand by increasing the speed limit or these, or decreasing, or doing this, or what's it going to cost us, all of that sort of stuff. And there are proactive elements in there, and that's exciting to see. I think we're seeing some really wonderful stuff. We see the continuous barrier systems, for example, on some of the new state highway sort of bypass or extension routes and those sort of things, which, they haven't said, well, we'll wait and see where the crashes are, and then we'll put barrier there. And they haven't, it's just part of what has to be done. Another really interesting proactive, probably one of the earliest proactive sort of things in road safety was school speed zones. And school speed zones are an interesting one to show. They really show me that we can be proactive in road safety in a really good way, because the reason for that is when you look at school speed zones as an economist, I don't know if any of you are economists, but the way we calculate a benefit cost ratio, or you inject it into a standard business case in New Zealand, school speed zones are not a good investment from that pure economic perspective, right? The reason for that is that, very basic summary here. If you didn't have school speed zones, you'd look at what is the risk of kids being killed or seriously injured in these areas. And you would take that and you would put a dollar value to human life. And, if you get disturbed by that, there's a lot of that going on in the way these things are happening. And so whatever you put, $8 million or something for a New Zealander as under a willingness to pay style calculation. And you go, right, okay. And then you go, how many New Zealanders, so how many kids are we expected to be killed or seriously injured over the next, whatever you say, 10 years, 20 years? And then you say, all right, now we're going from 60 kilometers per hour to 40 kilometers per hour, or maybe 50 to 40 in all of these areas. And how many vehicles are going through there? And what is the increased time? And so you do a calculation and you go, okay, Well, it's an extra, 1.8 seconds per vehicle for this zone, and it's an extra 2.3 seconds per vehicle for this zone. And then you multiply that by all the vehicles going through that zone, and then you multiply that by 365 days a year, and then you multiply that by the 20 years, and you get this big beast of time. And then you take that time and you multiply it by the mandate or the average productivity dollar value per hour for a New Zealander, and it's about $88 an hour, I think, something like that. And you get this whopping sum of money, right? Then you take that whopping sum of money and you compare it to the sum of money in terms of death and serious injury, and you discover that investing in school speed zones gives you a horrible BCR. You lose money every time you put it in under this BCR ratio. And in fact, an economist would say, well, we could boost the New Zealand economy by ripping out all the school speed zones. Now, the grotesqueness of looking at it in this way is somehow very clear when we're talking about kids and trading off human life and health of kids to get a second through a speed zone. But for some reason, when we go out to other areas of road safety, we don't have that same proactive lens, or we don't see it the same way. And it's really, it's a really fascinating one. And I do in other business cases sometimes challenge economists on this thinking, and they of course say, oh, you're not taking into account the externalities and the system doesn't cater for the and the wider entity, and they can spin a story around it, but that's sort of the nature of it. Anyway, that's a little bit about our safety culture. But the safe system is aspiring to keep us all up here with all our decision making and thinking. So Max, I reckon we can do a quiz now, and one of the questions we've sort of talked about and answered, and one of them we haven't at all. But remember, these people don't get marked on this. And the second one, I will utilize and run through a bit of discussion about. Over to you, Max.
I've just launched a poll. Hopefully you'll see that jump up on your screen. 2 questions here. The first one is, which of the following is not a key principle of the safe system? And there's a few options for you to select, and you should just be able to click on the answer that you think is correct. So you don't need to type it in the chat or anything. The answers are: aim for no death or serious injury, aim for no mistakes on the road, people are vulnerable, people make mistakes, or shared responsibility. And the second question, a little bit left of field, this one. At what speed did Usain Bolt cross the finish line in his world record 100-meter sprint? So 2 questions as part of that poll. We'll give you a minute or so just to complete that, and then we'll share the results, and I suppose we'll get some clarification as to why we're talking athletic records in a safe system presentation shortly.
Yes. Intriguing. Thank you, Max. Hopefully everybody's seeing that poll popping up on their screen. Of course, you can move the little poll box around your screen, which may be useful later on. You're not marked on these, don't worry. If you go, oh no, I clicked that bar, I didn't mean to click that. Oh no, I've rethought it. Don't worry about it. In fact, we don't even know who clicks what, do we, Max?
That's right, it's all anonymous, so there's no pressure in that sense. Just trying to see the general feel of where the answers lie. What's your speed, by the way, Ken, crossing the finish line at 100-meter trials that you regularly do?
These days, my legs wouldn't take me very fast at all over that. On my bike, I'm up around the 40, 45, sometimes even up to about 50. Really going crazy on a flat and downhill a bit more, but no, not. Not too much more than that. All right, I think we'd better keep moving on, Max. Lots to cover. And
No worries. I'll end the poll there and I'll share the results so everyone can have a look at the variation. And Ken, if you want to have a chat through them.
So the majority of you are on the money there with aim for no mistakes on the road. That's not one of the principles of the SAFE system. Now, you know, we would love no mistakes on the road, but we're realistic in the fact that humans are operating this system still, and that a fixation and aim for no mistakes loses our focus on managing the mistakes when they happen. So what I prefer to always say is to minimize and manage is what we want to do. And certainly all the others, we've got that aspiration for zero death and serious injury. And we know the vulnerability of people make mistakes, and we have a shared responsibility. So that is, those are those. And then Usain Bolt, what did we come up with? Oh my gosh, this group's done pretty well. So yeah, 44 kilometers an hour. It's incredible speed. But yes, that's the fastest human we've got. But let's stop sharing that, because I'm going to utilize that little bit of information, because I want you to imagine that we park a Toyota Camry, maybe a 2010 Toyota Camry at the end of Usain Bolt's lane, and he runs at 44 kilometers per hour and bang, slams into it at that speed. Will he survive? Well, the answer is probably yes. He will survive. And in fact, he'll recover from any injuries that he gets to lead a normal, healthy life. And there is a general correlation in the maximum running speed of a human and their ability to withstand the forces of running into solid objects. And you'll find that old people that can't get up to Usain Bolt speeds, of course, or even anywhere near that, they cannot withstand those forces. And so you can test this out yourself by running at your maximum running speed at a tree and proving that you will injure yourself, but you will recover to lead a normal, healthy life, should you want to prove this. But we have this information from road crashes that have happened. And this graph's a really interesting one, because what we have here is fatality probability on the y-axis and collision speed. So this is collision speed. This is not speed limit or 85th percentile speed. Get those out of your head at the moment. This is just speed of impact. And this is for a passenger vehicle striking a pedestrian. And we see there at around 10, 20, 30 kilometers per hour, it's quite likely that a member of our community will survive. You know, and this is catering for kids and adults and old people as well. So, you know, we've got quite a range here. Up around 60, 70, 80 kilometers per hour, it's pretty certain that they're going to be killed. Now, there's the great man himself. He's coming up the curve because he is a hulk of a human, very structurally sound, and can withstand that kind of force. But we do get, you know, these freak incidents where people are struck at very high speed and survive, or people are hit in a car park and they fall over and they hit their head and they die. So, you know, this is just a general curve. But it's really important to note here that about 30 kilometers an hour, somewhere in that general speed range, things go really bad really quickly after that. Right? That's our point where things go really bad really quick. This is the kind of stuff we're designed for. There we go. He came back the next year, won the gold medal in the Olympics. So recovered, broke some ribs, recovered, everything was good. That's what we're designed for. But we're obviously propelled far faster than that. And things propel at us or come at us way faster than that. We have this data for other crash types as well. So this is a side impact crash. So this is the bullet vehicle speed in the collision speed, and bullet vehicle. By bullet vehicle, we call that the bullet vehicle. That's the one that does the damage, does the striking in a crash event. This one, T at a T intersection style crash, that's the target vehicle. So that's the one that is copying the damage. And this is the chance of death of target vehicle occupant being driver's side if struck driver's side, or passenger vehicle, or passenger side if struck passenger side. And we see there that, similar curve, but around that 50 kilometers per hour is where it goes really bad really quickly after that. Let's then just have a look at one more, which is head-on crash. Head-on crash. And we see there, similar curve, and we see around that 70 kilometer per hour mark is where things go really bad really quick. Now that 70 is 70 for each vehicle, okay? The closing speed, I suppose you'd say, is 140 kilometers per hour. The actual crash force impact speed that we would be using is a 70 kilometer per hour crash, because we're really interested in the target vehicle occupant and the bullet vehicle. They're both target and bullet vehicles in a head-on crash. The deceleration for the individual occupant. And if you assume same mass, same speed, head-on crash, the driver and passenger will go from 70 kilometers per hour to 0 because it's stopped. So that's the force we're most interested in. Mythbusters did an episode on this to prove this point, because a lot of people were saying that you get 140 kilometers per hour worth of crash force because you're taking all the force of the other vehicle into yours. But it's not the case. In true Mythbusters fashion, they just crashed cars into each other and then into walls with accelerometers in the vehicle, and proved this point. And in fact, Max, if you can dig out one that works in New Zealand and share that, that would be cool.
Yeah, no problem.
I know we did send a YouTube version of it once to New Zealand and they couldn't access it for some reason. But this line here, this 30 for pedestrians and cyclists, 50 for right angle, 70 for head-on, they're very important speeds to understand under the safe system, as the point things go really bad really quickly after that. But there are lots and lots of other crash types, aren't there? I mean, we just had 3 there with passenger vehicles. So how do they play out with a whole lot of other crash types? And what we've done is we've listed a number of crash types here, the speeds that these happen of the bullet vehicle speed. And then we're sort of given this gradient chart and numbers. Now, numbers are used when we get into scoring in a safe system assessment. So that's way down the track in this course. We're actually quantifying expected severity outcomes on a scale of 0 to 4. Right. But for now, I just want to say that it's a gradient here. It's not, we know at 29 kilometers per hour, pedestrian is safe, and at 31 they're dead. No, there'll be a lot of alterations with that. We just know there's a bit of a gradient. But there's professional judgment required in all of this, and there's lots of other research popping up and people delving into this and clarifying and getting more information. So there's a bit of subjectivity and professional judgment required, but this is a pretty good indicator. Now we are going to give you a little stretch break and a chance to fill up your water and your coffee and things in a few minutes. But I'll just talk about this diagram. And this diagram is sort of the bane of my existence in road safety. And the reason for that is not because it's incorrect. It's because of how it's used. But what this is, and you see it pop up a lot. And in fact, I see it pop up a lot in people new to the road safety space, because they discover it and then they think, oh, that's okay. That's it. That's what we need to be doing. And they then plonk it into the early parts of their presentation and the like. And anyway, what it is a crash causation study, and they usually represent it in something like this form. And this one happened to be on drivers, 2013, crashes involving vehicles, but we could call this road users. Any road user, pedestrian, cyclists, motorcyclists. When you do an in-depth investigation into a whole lot of crashes, as these crash causation studies do, they take 1,000 or 5,000 crashes and they analyze them in excruciating detail and look for root cause in it and do root cause analysis. And what they discover is that human error, driver error or road user error, is around the 90% of the cause of crashes. The road plays a part in some of those, and the road is its own entity in a small percentage, and the vehicles themselves are an issue in a very small percent. This 2003 study has this at 94%. So I don't question their research methodology, what they did, and absolutely brilliant people doing these studies. And so, sure, they're right. But the big issue I have is that then people look at this and they go, we need to address the biggest problem. I mean, that's what you do. You find the problems and you address them. And so they start to focus on trying to change the humans. And that's their big focus. We need to alter that thinking, right? We need to see it as a system failure, because changing the human is not going to be 94% of our road safety improvement. It'll be a small percent. The humans are the hardest to change, and just as we start getting into genetic engineering and the like, then we can do probably get some significant gains from that perspective. But we won't get into that debate. But what we can change around the vehicles and the roads and the systems that let people into the system and a whole lot of other things, we can control those so much better, and they're sustainable and longer term. So what we want to think about now is, how did our system fail? And what can we do to alter the system so it doesn't result in death or serious injury? And this is a diagram out of Ostro's. And I would say that you could just plonk driver excess or driver inexperience in there, because they're system failures as well. But the reason they did this out of a Centre for Automotive Safety Research study was identifying probably that there's a very different system response to these two outliers. And part of the reasoning for that is there's a really good report. It's a big, juicy report called Analysing Error in the Transport System or something like that. It's an Ostrich report. I can dig it out if somebody's particularly interested. But it talks about slips, lapses, mistakes, unintentional violations, and deliberate violations in road crashes. And people get fixated down here in this deliberate violator. They're deliberately deviating from a set of rules or procedures, and that resulting in a death or serious injury. What they showed was that somewhere around 30% of death and serious injury on the New Zealand road network is in the deliberate violation. It's actually probably a little bit higher, probably more about 35 for New Zealand. But what we see is then the bulk of death and serious injury sits in the slips, lapses, mistakes, and unintentional violations. Basically, people trying to generally go about their business and being killed or seriously injured on the road network. Now, the media, they get excited when there's death and serious injury in this one, because that's a juicy story. And that sort of precipitates this vision of road safety as only those extreme driver behavior and these sorts of things. And that sort of counters any system changes that we want to do, because politicians, a lot of community and others are just like, these idiots, and if they, did the right thing, then we wouldn't have this problem and the like. But the fact is we have an inherently unsafe system. That means that these slips and slaps, mistakes, and unintentional violations are resulting in death or serious injury. Now, we need to do a very different look at our system for these, and I'm doing some interesting work with Austroads over the last year with colleagues around this deliberate violators, which actually sort of is a social challenge. Sort of headline outcomes is people drive the way they live. And you actually need to address some bigger picture societal challenges around these deliberate violator sort of areas. There are quite a few of the deliberate violation crashes that could be addressed with other infrastructure measures or the like, but anyway, let's put that one slightly aside for the moment. I say it's very important, obviously, 35%, but I think the way we operate it will be slightly different. Max, anything I have to deal with before I give a little activity and also give people a chance to have that stretch and that coffee and all those exciting things?
We have had quite a few questions come in. I'm still busy typing away, so apologies if I haven't responded to you just yet. But no, some good conversation coming up. One of those was just regarding the slide showing your crash speeds and certain crash types, and I suppose we're just trying to show that's a generic in nature. It's not meant to be if it gets that speed and it's that crash type, then it gets the score of 1, or it's that severity. It's more just to show how different crash types kind of relate to those speeds. So it's certainly not meant to be, a very descriptive analysis or anything like that. But yeah, some good questions coming through.
Yeah, we were certainly trying to grade those colors to try and give this sort of smooth, just as you say, a general indication. We'll do a bit more analysis of crashes and speeds and forces and angles and road users and protective equipment and things like that in the next module as well. But for now, what I'd like people to do, and just before you bring the poll up, Max, I'll just explain what we've got here. On the left-hand side there, you've got traditional approach to road safety. And on the right-hand side, we've got the safe system approach. And what we want you to do is have a think about each of those boxes and try to say, well, traditionally it was victim blaming, and what we're moving to now is, maybe effort to create a forgiving system or maximizing safe mobility. Now, I'll tell you now, some of these could go to multiple spots, but it's really the purpose of it is to get you thinking. And to make your life easy, Max has done it in a poll, and we can pop that poll up. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you 4 minutes to read through those, answer them. Remember, you're not being marked on it, but you've got 4 minutes to have a look through those and also have that stretch and fill your water up. And we'll get back to you in 4 minutes.
If the poll doesn't launch for anyone, feel free to just use this slide and maybe just jot it down on a piece of paper how you would mix and match those different rows. So but hopefully everyone is getting the poll. Okay.
Yeah, or if you want to, if it didn't come up, you can just write like 1C, 2A, 3B. You could put that in the chat if you wanted to ensure you're involved. Thanks. See you in 4 minutes. We'll give it another 15 seconds or something, Max, you reckon?
I've got a short anecdote in that meantime. I got a text from my network provider saying that there is a network outage. So it's not just my dog has, started to chew cables again. It's it's an actual internet problem bigger than just this house, which is good.
All right. Yes, very good. And we'll wait and see if the network outage makes it to my place. Not the Christchurch network outage there, Max. But anyway, okay, I think we better get back into it because I've got 7 hours worth of content to cover in the next 50 minutes. So let's end that one. Thanks. Most of you got something in there and at least had a good think about it, which is really was the whole purpose of that. And I'm just was scanning through behind the scenes there, and I like most of the thinking going on. I'm going to actually get rid of that if I can, Max.
I'll do it for you. Stop sharing.
Thank you. Because I'll do it on the screen. It's a little easier to do. And as I say, some of these could go to multiple spots, so don't get too stressed. But victim blaming, it's recognition of that human error. I'm trying to minimize the consequence. Emphasis on road user education and compliance. It's now more that effort to create that forgiving system. But we're not ignoring education and compliance, and I'll show you that in the next few slides as well. Focus on crash reduction. I would say that enhanced focus on consequence, especially severe injury minimization. So we're still going to try to reduce crash numbers, but try to manage the energy within those crashes. These 4 pillars actioned independently, where we're away from that. This multifaceted system with interacting elements optimized jointly as an interaction. That's a mouthful, isn't it? But we've sort of moved away from those pillars as such. Mobility, safety, balance, now to maximizing safe mobility. Nice little quote here, and I think this is a good one. Just sums it up nicely. We need a paradigm shift in road safety policy to stop the road death epidemic, and we need it now. It is unrealistic to expect that education and enforcement alone will bring the needed step change. Even road users who know and follow the rules make mistakes. A safe system creates an environment in which simple mistakes will no longer kill. Let's just do a little, on ground, back to something some of you are going to be a lot more comfortable with. And this is a wire rope safety barrier system in a flushed narrow median. And before this project went in, it was separated by a white line, or 2 white lines, barrier line. And the project, was trying to put this barrier system in. Now, you don't know anything about the Melbourne Highway project, and this was the first of its sort of kind in this jurisdiction. Without knowing really much more than this, I'll show you another picture of it. There's another picture of it installed a little bit down the road. Getting an idea of that. I just want you to type into the chat some of the challenges that you think the project team faced in the planning, design, development of this. What are some of the challenges, the hurdles, the things that were stopping this project actually being implemented for a very long time, I say. Now, I'll jot a few down, and they're not, the biggest ones necessarily, but a couple I found very interesting. And if you happen to match one of the ones that I popped down, you can win a prize. We'll give a second there for people to jot a few things down, Max.
Yep.
I'm watching these come in live, Max, and I'm excited. It's like this group's trying to implement this project themselves.
The cheese cutter campaign, that's a sore spot.
Okay. Well, the Max, the challenge is going to be, I'm going to say a couple of things. You're going to work out who gets the prizes for it, whether it's the first person who said it or the older people that said it. But one that I popped in there, and I don't think I've seen this one directly come up in the way, was the fact that the barrier will deflect into the oncoming lane. Okay, so that was one. And the second one that I just jotted down was the maintenance. The maintenance crews said that they could not safely do maintenance on this road with this barrier system, be that to fix the barrier system when struck or fix potholes or pavement in the lane without the ability. So I'll let you ponder that, Max, challenges there, because I saw these sort of themes coming up quite a lot. And I also saw some other ones which were absolutely popped up. The motorcycle community were out there lobbying in force against this. Yeah, cheese cutter. And now they're putting the cheese cutters in the middle of the road. And it's, their turnaround ability, the cost, certainly. The need for it in this sort of fundamental sense. People were saying, well, no, people need to not fall asleep, and you should be, fixing that. The emergency services and ability to get to the roadside if it was on fire or turn around. These were all issues that were coming up. So this group's very well attuned to this. And there's a few messages I want to put forward from this one. One is that when we are doing something that is not what we have done a lot of in the past, people come back at it. They do not like it. People don't like change. They don't like these different things. I mean, that's another human nature thing, right? So we're going to face a lot of challenges to these sort of things. We need to treat each of these with legitimacy and work through them. But one major advantage of a safe system assessment is that it just quantifies the benefit of something like this. The reason I pointed out this deflection, so those of you who know how a barrier system works will know very well that the vehicle strikes this, posts break away, the wires engage the vehicle, it deflects out like that and brings the vehicle back. That's how they work. Lots of crash videos, barrier test videos out there if you want to see. The offset, the deflection zone there does not meet the requirements for a wire rope safety barrier system by a little bit. This just absolutely stopped this project. And people would just say, you're not meeting it. You're not meeting the requirements. You can't put the barrier system in. The alternate being leave it as a white line or two white lines. And so we can get fixated on this sort of stuff, but being able to draw ourselves out and see the big picture and the advantages of it is important. Now, you'd love to meet the deflection zone. They had challenges with width and cuttings and other bits and pieces. So it's complex. I'm oversimplifying it, but the point being that a safe system assessment, if they were around and used at this time, this project, would really have clearly said, here's how bad it is now, and here's how good it'll be with that barrier down the middle. Because when we come up with a project like this, the immediate reviews, often road safety audits, but also, in design reviews and other bits and pieces, focus on the risks that this will cause. And that's important to look at, don't get me wrong. But if we have something that creates very, tiny little increase in risk, tiny little increase in risk. Massive reduction in risk. Do you do that? Well, I mean, the answer we would like to say is, well, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of the risk and have all good side. But, as a collective, we've got to be doing that. And a safe system assessment just sort of, hammers that home. Anyway, I'm going to keep moving on. Oh, the maintenance one, I suppose I need to mention. The maintenance, people are saying, you can't do this because we can't safely maintain this road. And worker safety, absolutely paramount. I agree. But the thing is that we have a whole lot of control over how we go about our maintenance practices. And we have very little control on how the public use the road network and fall asleep and leave their lane and crash, right? So what we need to do is alter our maintenance practices and the way we go about this, because we need to put that barrier in there. It's what we can control. Of course, this got hit because, it's there. And that was another one, some of the maintenance, it's going to get hit all the time. Okay, it's going to get hit. That's why we're putting it there. But it got hit, of course. And then interestingly, in this incident, one of the people involved, not the one that hit the system, the one that was driving the other way, called up the regional office of the Road Controlling Authority and said, just want to talk to somebody about that new barrier system down the Melbourne Highway. And the project engineer, expecting to be shouted at, of course, that's what, you naturally do. And they just said, I just want to thank you because that saved my life, I'm pretty sure. And the engineer was smart enough to quickly get the comms team or get his details and get the comms team, and they made a little video of it. Now, I've put that video into your memory stick and on Moodle, and it's like a 2-minute video, and it is just wonderful because it shows how the safe system has catered for this. So somebody's fallen asleep, they've left their lane, they've gone directly at another vehicle, and the barrier system has stopped them having that head-on crash. So we don't want that person to fall asleep, and we continue to try to get better fatigue management and the people giving that information. But the reality is they'll continue to do that, and the system has just meant that is a panel, that beta incident, or minor injury. And to me, it's just really captures safe system. That's not to say that wire rope is, always the answer or exactly this, but the whole general idea is so important. Watch that video and share it with others. It's awesome. All right, I'm just going to jump through a few of the levers that we've got, just to give you a little bit of an indication of some of the key bits and pieces associated with safer people or road user choices, vehicle safety, a bit of a discussion about speed. Why am I doing this in a safe system assessment course? Well, a few reasons. One is that when you do a safe system assessment, a full safe system assessment, you get asked questions, or there are some questions that you need to answer around the vehicles and the vehicle safety features of the area you're looking at, the people, their behavior, what could be done, what could be altered, what campaigns could happen, what's happening. So you're actually getting questions beyond just the pouring of the concrete and the deflection of the barrier and those sort of things. It's a wider assessment. That's one. And the other one is that you are probably already, but you are going to continue to be, and maybe enhance the fact that you're safe system road safety champions in your community. And people will be, asking you questions or coming up with ideas and being put to you, or even if you're at a barbecue and somebody is, asking you what you do, and you say, oh, road safety, or it is, and then they'll chat to you about different ideas that they've got and the like, and you'll have some evidence bases on a few things to talk to them about and try to maybe shift a little bit of some of the thinking. So let's talk about safer road users. How do we get better road use? And we can do that through education, encouragement, enforcement, and some sort of licensing system or the like. So I'll just go through those one at a time. When we talk about education, well, this isn't just for road safety, obviously, but the best people to take on messages and education like that are the little humans, the kids, obviously. And one thing we certainly know in road safety sense is they are wonderful little Trojan horses for messages to their parents, because if you can instill good road safety messages like wear your seatbelt in the car or something like that, that is very important. Everybody wears their seatbelt. They will be telling their parents to put their seatbelt on. Those sorts of ideas are really quite neat. When we get to the young drivers, those just starting out in their driving journey, we know they're our highest risk road user. We know a few things. One being that sending them on an advanced driver training course where they learn to get out of high-speed skids and they learn advanced braking techniques makes them more likely to be killed or seriously injured on the roads. That's right, I said more likely. Okay. The reason for that is that they get a few new skills that they might be able to use in a very rare circumstance. But they go out of that more confident and take more risks, and their risk-taking behavior and the number of circumstances where they get in high risk just swamps any benefit you get from advanced skills. That's one of the best studied things around the world in road safety. There is so much information and literature around that. Now, there are things that prove some sort of potential benefit around, sometimes referred to, well, New Zealand certainly defensive driving it's called, but really you don't need to do anything at high speed, and you can do it all on the public road network or in a classroom and the like. So the idea that, this is a skills issue, it's just false. Road safety is not a skills issue. I'll show you some other data that proves that as well. This one, I love this little ad, and the reason for it is when we're talking messaging and trying to talk to people about road safety and get them to change their behaviour. If we talk to an individual about their risk of being involved in a crash, so say for this one, we talked to this guy and said, if you text and drive, you'll be involved in a crash and you'll be killed. He will go, no, I'm a good driver, safe, I'm doing it safe. And there's a sort of reinforcement that happens every time that driver texts and drives and does not get killed or seriously injured, that this is all not true. But if you were to say that, actually, before I jump onto that, there is also the fact that that driver's not wrong. In fact, the chance of being killed or seriously injured from texting and driving is absolutely minuscule for an individual. Please don't repeat that to the public, okay? Absolutely minuscule, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the collective risk. And the risk of all those minuscule risks collected together is a significant society risk, the collective, right? So what we're doing is coming up with campaigns, and we're going, got all these crashes involving people using mobile phones. We've got to try and get that down. And we then say to people, don't use your mobile phone, you'll be killed or seriously injured. And they're like, no, they're not wrong, because we're talking in the collective language and they're hearing it in an individual language. But if you tell them, hey, you text and drive, your kids are going to text and drive. They're like, ooh, I don't want that to happen. And this plays out in a very interesting way in speed limits, from what I've discovered. If you put a lower speed limit, say 100 kilometre per hour road, putting it down to 80 kilometres per hour, and you tell the community, hey, we're doing this for your safety, they're just like, you're doing it for revenue raising. And it's really not for their safety. It's for everybody's safety. And they'll do the old, I've been driving this road for 40 years. I've never had a crash. And it's all the people who don't know how to drive it. And it's the tourists or some, whatever it is. So we need to actually start to look at what else actually motivates people and makes them understand and accept some of these changes. And it's certainly not their chance of death or serious injury. Their kids, absolutely, big motivator. You can discover that protection of wildlife can be very effective in terms of like that 100 to 80. There's some studies out of Tasmania that show far more support for a lower speed limit for the protection of wildlife than humans, because people just go, humans are being idiots. Like they've got to stop that. Wildlife don't know what to do with it, but we know we'd get the benefit. So it's fascinating. Greenhouse gas emissions, another approach. You get less greenhouse gas emissions driving at 80 kilometers per hour. If you set that, you can optimize that. Anyway, I'm sort of. Let's go. What works? Whole school approach to road safety across the years is really effective. Education combined with other partner activities like the police or the like, support for community education is a really good one. Lots of motivated people to improve road safety out there, lots of community groups and others. Our job is to ensure that they're doing evidence-based things to make an actual difference. It really makes me weep when you see a community group investing their time, their money, and their effort into something that all the research and evidence says is going to make things worse, like advanced driver training, or that they are, taking all the year 12 or the year 11 students or something to the trauma ward to show them what could happen to them if they are involved in a road crash. That does not impact on their behaviour on the roads. What it does is it traumatizes some of the kids pretty badly mentally, and it's most effective on the lowest risk students anyway. So it's just not a good thing to do from a road safety perspective, or a really much perspective. But it logically sounds like something that would work, doesn't it? But this is where you've got to go to the research and the evidence. Now, graduated licensing is really good. That's where you have restrictions on drivers as they enter into the system and ease those restrictions as they go. I'll show you a graph on that shortly. And education targeting, well, parents basically, especially motivated groups, and action programs. And again, I'll talk a bit more about that. But what doesn't work? I've covered quite a few of these. Fear tactics don't tend to work. So, the morgue or the trauma ward visit, but also the shock and awe TV ads. Now, you'll see less of those going forward, but there is often a purpose for those, but it's more about legislative change. So if you're going to put in really strict drink driving laws or drug driving laws or something, it's not necessarily a bad thing to scare the hell out of the public with ads and then put your legislation through, because they will be more accepting of that. Will they change their driving behaviour based on your ad? No, but they'll be accepting of that legislative change. Anything skill-based at high speed is just, it's not a good thing. One-off events, you want to do a coordinated effort. nothing seen yet in driver simulations that is helping out. Now, there's a lot of work and studies going on in that at the moment, so we might see something there. Car racing clubs, go-karting clubs, again, in the space of skill-based driver training, it just doesn't improve things. In fact, goes the other way most of the time. And just providing information only. I mean, again, that's justification for your legislative change, but you're telling people that this many people have been killed on this road won't change the behaviour of the road users you're particularly trying to target. Again, your probably safest road users will be maybe even a little bit safer somehow. But here's a little diagram that I think is just fascinating and dispels any myths that it's all about the skills of drivers, because this is crash numbers over this side, but you can do the same, and it has been done with crash rates, right? And learner drivers being people who have no experience and they've got a supervising driver, they have very low crash numbers, very low crash rates. As soon as they're out there by themselves, the crash and the crash rates go off the charts. It comes down over time, but it actually doesn't get back to the safety of somebody with no experience. So you're getting all the skills and all of this, but the safety is not, comparable due to the mass amount of other factors in there in road crashes and the like. I think that's quite interesting. It is interesting. You always see that politician or race car driver who can, if everybody was as good as Michael Schumacher, we would have no, deaths. It's just absolutely not true. Let's get something else there. So there is a bit of encouragement in the road safety space. Is an interesting topic. There's actually a bit of evidence to show that if you pay people to drive safely, they will drive safely. That one was a surprise. And you do it. You don't actually give them money, but you give them like a free full license if they go through their probationary period without any demerit points or something like that. Advertising and marketing a specific behaviour. So instead of saying don't drive tired, right, say rest every 2 hours of driving, something like that, or get this amount of sleep before you drive. It's got to be, you got to be specific with this. And I don't need to tell New Zealanders this, because you're the world's best in coming up with creative, comical ads, TV ads and campaigns and the like. Pretty much Australia just steals New Zealand ads and rebrands them because of the creative awesomeness. And I put a few into your memory stick. You'll have seen some of them. But it's really interesting, especially young males resonate with these ads. They recall them. Do they lead to action change? It's hard to evaluate that, but some we know do. But there's some pretty positive things there. There's going to be a lot more talk about the system changing, a lot more advertising of the system. And this one, there you go, the South Australians stole this from New Zealand. Now, this is a bit shock and awe, this ad, but it's about other people make mistakes. They're not trying to say, hey, you're going to make a mistake and be sort of seriously injured. No, others will. See, that's everybody slow down. People make mistakes. How do you talk to the public about human tolerance to physical force? There's been different ways to try to do it. I used this Usain Bolt analogy earlier. The PAC in Victoria uses Graham. Graham's a life-size sculpture that looks scarily human and is the only person designed to survive on the roads. And getting the year 10s and 11s into the facility they've got, they look at Graham, they discuss, the why, there's so much of this going on, the forces on the road, and then what you would need to do to change the road system. So Graham comes back more to a human, and we help the TAC with some interactive things where if you put barrier systems on high-speed roads, or you put raised pedestrian crossings on lower speed limits, and you can get Graham back more to a human. So it's pretty exciting stuff. based on some pretty good science as well. Enforcement. Enforcement's a good supporter of the safe system. It's not the be-all and end-all. In fact, the police are very forward in saying we just support stuff. We're not. It's not it. But we do know that we need to be strategic with our enforcement effort. It's expensive and doesn't, it's not a sustainable thing. And specific and general deterrence. Specific deterrence is you have been caught doing something, or I have been caught doing something, I will not do that again. General deterrence is I could be caught doing something, so I won't do it. And visual presence is really good for general deterrence, but it's expensive. But we have technology, don't we? I mean, speed cameras, point-to-point speed cameras, wonderful initiative. Take a photo of a number plate at one point on the road network, take a photo of a number plate 20 kilometres down the road, take the average speed. You really get that enforcement over a massive area. So these sort of things are really coming along nicely. And there is an elegant way to enforce, rather than some of the blunt instruments we use to enforce. And I think alcohol interlocks are a really elegant enforcement technique, because if you have somebody who's a drink driver, a recidivist drink driver, maybe, if you are to take their license off them, take their, impound their car or crush their car, or give them a, $2,000, $5,000 fine, something, astronomical. Quite a portion of those people will just further spiral their life out of control. They need their car to get to their job, or they drive for a living, or they're being fined an amount that they will have no ever possibility to pay, and now you're giving other challenges from that perspective. So if we can just target the specific risk entity, we can have a more socially conscious way of doing this in enforcement. And so alcohol influx, basically, you blow into it and then your car starts if you've got alcohol in the system, and it beeps occasionally, randomly as you're going, and you've got sort of 5 minutes to find somewhere safe to pull over and blow into it again, which is version 2 of alcohol interlocks, after some people were discovered to be fudging the system, getting others to blow into it and the like. Nothing stopping us doing this with speed. Technology-wise, at least. Political acceptance, maybe not quite there. But we have all speed, all speeds in New Zealand are mapped. The GPS units know where it is. I mean, this is my car, my Victorian government car 15 years ago, with a speed device that knew the speed zone, beeped at me when it wasn't, if I was speeding. The technology is not the issue. It's political willingness. We could enforce all the time, every meter on speed if we wanted. The privacy lawyers go absolutely berserk when you bring that idea up. But anyway, okay, let's keep ticking along through a few things, because I am running out of time, and Max just needs to show you Moodle shortly. But anything that I need to deal with, Max, or are you madly typing behind the scenes?
Yes, vigorously working away back here, but it's all good. Thank you, Ken.
Great. We do keep the questions and comments coming in, and it's good. We're getting a nice high-level sort of thought about road safety. The vehicles. Let's talk about the vehicles, because often said, well, the vehicles will solve all of these problems. We don't really need to invest in anything else. Well, vehicles are doing a magnificent job and are continuing to do a magnificent job, and will transform our industry over the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And fingers crossed, in my lifetime, put me out of a job. That's the hope. But it is a long way to go. It is a really long way to go. And there are so many complex things to be worked on. But let's start with the safety rating of vehicles under ANCAP or other CAP programs, which we have the frontal offset crash test here. And the dummy needs to not be subject to level 3 serious injury, a acquired brain injury, basically. So very, very significant lifelong stuff. This crash happens at 64 kilometers an hour. You have a 5-star car, and we know it's been crashed at 64 kilometers per hour head on, and the dummy's not going to have lifelong debilitating brain injuries. Side impact with a pole. The speed of this just recently went up a bit. And Max, I'll give a prize to the person who can tell me what speed does the ANCAP and the, well, it's the Eurocap as well, and what speed does the side impact pole test happen at? So they slide a vehicle into a pole. Sometimes they slide the pole into the vehicle, but at a certain speed in kilometers per hour, person who gets its closest can have a prize. What do we got there, Max? Anything coming in?
Yes, we're getting some certainly high numbers, which might surprise people to hear what this result is. I've got a very close one at 35. That's actually the closest I've seen so far.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah, give a prize there. It's 30.
Eduardo just snuck in with 30 though.
Oh. After you said 35 is close, so I'll let you decide whether you give 2 prizes out there. 32 kilometers an hour. It just went up from 29 to 32, which I was like, this is we're not really anywhere near the speeds we're talking about, leaving the road, hitting trees, hitting power poles, side impact, and the yawing of a vehicle. I say that because 32 kilometers an hour. It is so, like, the side of a vehicle is so weak from a energy absorption perspective. Even your side curtain airbags are not doing a huge amount. So a 5-star vehicle has only been crashed at 32 kilometers per hour. Anyway, interestingly, the pedestrian crash test is done at higher speed. It's done at 40 kilometers per hour. It's an interesting one. Well, the reason the pole test is so bad is that it's a single point source, and it's basically directly at the head of the occupant. This is actually a distributed load, and the vehicles, like cars off the production line now, the bonnet pops up, so it acts a bit like a trampoline when a pedestrian or an airbag goes out over the bonnet. That's pretty stock standard. You're not going to find vehicles off the production line now that aren't doing those sort of things. But where do we at that vehicle of the future? It doesn't require the fallible human. I mean, we saw 94% of crash causation, human error. Okay, so if we could get the human out of this, we've got a big win, don't we? And that's absolutely, everybody's happy with that, excited. But we've got a long, long way to go before we get to level 5 autonomy, which would be this vehicle that can go anywhere. Level 4 autonomy would be this vehicle, but geo-fenced to some specific roads or areas. And you might have seen, one of a level 4 pottering up and down the waterfront or something as a demonstration. But, we are so far from actually being able to do this. But then we also need to turn over the whole New Zealand fleet and get everybody into them. And then we have social equity issues. Can you afford this vehicle? Can you not? We have about 1,400 pieces of legislation in New Zealand that say that you basically can't do this. So those all need to be worked. It's a long, long process, and we need to look at everything we can do. But in the safe system assessment, we're starting this journey. And what we're doing is we're saying some generic questions to start with that you'll have to answer. It's kind of saying, what are the vehicles of the future going to be doing on this road that you're designing, or this roundabout, or this plan? Are they going to understand it? Are there any features that are going to confuse them? And, you know, the vehicle is reading the road, looking at signs, reading signs, processing those. Is that a standard sign? Does it know what to do? Are you blacking out line marking? Is it going to follow the wrong line marking? Now, you know, there'll be a few vehicles at the moment that are reading the road and taking this on, and it'll grow and grow over time. It's going to be fascinating as, you know, people in the road industry. We are going to more and more start designing the roads for the electronic eye rather than the human eye. But luckily, the electronic eye has been created based on existing infrastructure practices, and so it's kind of they're interlinking. But anyway, but we're going to get awesome outcomes in the interim with, you know, the vehicles kicking in, even though the driver was in control, and then the vehicle goes, "Nah, you don't know what you're doing. I'm going to take over." And hits the brakes, and maybe we still get crashes, but they're going to be lower speed, like one that took the dummy's leg off. You know, that car braked by itself. The driver didn't do anything, and slowed down and just touched the dummy. These are big wins. So we'll see this sort of filtered and integrated in as we go. And let me spend the last 3 minutes just talking about speed and reminding you about some fundamentals of physics and speed. Speed, so let's have a look here at a 60 kilometre per hour, vehicle's traveling at 60 kilometres per hour, somebody steps out at 45 metres away, driver processes that information, process, lift leg up, hit brake, then starts braking, and we'll touch that at 45 metres. Let's go up 10 kilometres per hour, 70 kilometres per hour. Hits at 46 kilometres an hour. This is not a linear relationship. Okay, that's the first thing we need to know, not a linear relationship. And in fact, what we know is when you look at it from a fatal or a serious injury perspective, it's a power relationship between fatal and serious. It's a fourth power relationship for fatal and a third power relationship for serious injury. You're not somebody who loves their maths and power relationships. It's basically saying small changes in speed have big changes in fatal crash chances, big changes in serious injury, a little bit smaller than fatality, and actually it's a second power relationship for all other injuries. The community attitude to speed is fascinating. New Zealand is, as I say a lot, leading the way here on some of the discussions with the community around speed limits and around speed management. Interesting, half the population, this is actually not New Zealand, this is, where's this from? No, it's not Victoria, it's Tasmania. But it's basically seems to be replicated across different things. Half the community don't believe that speed limits have any influence on crashes. They do think that speed limits have an influence on the severity of crashes when they occur, though. Well, most of them do. But that's just speed limits. And I don't want us to focus necessarily on speed limits. I want us to focus on the travel speed, the speed of crashes, and the energy of the crashes, because speed is just about energy, right? And it's a big factor in energy and energy transfer to the human. But I put this into the Austrade's Guide to Road Safety Part 3, Speed and Speed Management. It's a Swedish diagram, but it just shows you with any road user, road and vehicle, as long as you filter it through the appropriate speed, you've got a safe transport system. But the critical point to remember here is that we have a transport system to move people and goods. Safe system could be achieved by stopping all of that movement. But that's not what we're about. We're here to support the movement of people and goods in a safe manner. And it's important to understand that we're not just talking about speed limits, we're talking about travel speed, and we can achieve that through infrastructure and or speed limits. Explaining why that speed limit's there is very helpful, and protection of vulnerable road users is really good as well. And there's exciting stuff happening in electronic variable speed limits, changing it due to risk and time of day and the like. And risk, we're going to talk about a lot. Risk traditionally has been likelihood times consequence. I mean, that's the international definition of risk. What's the chance bad thing is going to happen, and how bad is it going to be? What's the magnitude of badness? I mean, financial risk, health risk, environmental risk, it's all, what's the chance of recession? What's the chance it's going to happen? How bad is it going to be? That's the risk of recession. We do it the same in road safety. What's the chance of a crash? How bad is it going to be? And in a safe system assessment, from likelihood, we've extracted out exposure, the number of people, pedestrian cyclists or motorcyclists or vehicle drivers exposed to that crash, then the chance that the crash is going to happen, and then how bad it's going to be. And this is what I'm going to take you through in lots of detail next time. How do we influence exposure? Do we stop people going through an intersection or a level crossing, change the numbers of people going through? Do we separate road users? So say vulnerable road users down here and vehicles up there, they're separated, they're not exposed to crashes. Do we say, how do we reduce the chance of crash happens? And there's lots of stuff we've commonly done. Line marking, sealed shoulders, lighting, delineation. These are all trying to stop the chance that the crash happens in the first place. Good geometric design, all of this. Traffic signals, stopping the chance of crash happens. Severity. Severity is really dictated by speed, by angle, by mass of vehicle, and a few other elements. So if you can slow vehicles at a conflict point where the crash is about to happen, less severity. If you can redirect the energy, so you can distribute it over time, so hit a barrier, run along a barrier rather than hitting a point source hazard, less severe. So let's pick all of that up next time. We don't have time for that quiz. And over to you, Max, to take everybody through Moodle, tell them where the quiz is, and
no problem. Thank you, Ken. So here's what Moodle looks like for those that haven't logged in just yet. Thanks to everyone who has provided a little introduction. It's always nice to see who we've got participating and a good way to engage with other participants in the course as well. I've just uploaded a document in the resources shared by participants tab there. If you're interested in the advanced training effectiveness, there's a whole bunch of resources in there. So there's a link that you can click on, and yeah, because it's a very common question we get, and there's a whole bunch of research that supports that. But we're looking today at Module 1, the Introduction to Road Safety in the Safe System. Later on today, we'll upload this webinar recording, so you'll be able to click on that and rewatch any of the bits that you potentially missed. But you'll also see here there's a quiz for today, so you can just click on that one there, and that will take you to the quiz page, and it's just a matter of selecting Attempt Quiz. My page may look a little bit different to yours because I'm a moderator, but yours will say Attempt Quiz, and you'll just click on that and you can get stuck into it. And the last thing I was just going to mention is I've also uploaded the Mythbuster episode that Ken touched on before. So let me know if that link doesn't work. It should theoretically though, because it's uploaded on our internal system. So we've downloaded it, and hopefully that means we can share it quite easily across the ditch. But this is Moodle, and this is where we will do all our quizzes and all our assignments. So just wanted to give you a brief rundown of how things look. Ken.
Beautifully done, Max. And thank you for uploading that research and fact sheet. We put, there's a few things in there, because certainly, don't take my word on it. Have a look at the actual research and the evidence behind some of these things. So there's a couple of different fact sheets in those resources about, driver behaviour and ways we can address that, and advanced driver training and all those sorts of things that I mentioned. So log in a little bit early, Friday, chance to win a prize. Max has got some exciting trivia for you. Do that quiz, have a go at it, and enjoy the rest of the day.
That's right. We'll see you on Friday. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.